It's time for the Kim Hammer Show, where you'll learn how your state government affects you, your family, and community. Here's Kim Hammer.
Hey, I hope you're having a great Saturday afternoon. Thanks for joining me here on the Kim Hammer Show. I just encourage you that if you want to be up to date on some current things and just kind of follow along, we have got our blog up and going, and you can just go up to the website and everything will be up there that you can find. It's the KimHammerShow.com, www.thekimhammershow.com. You can go up there and get all the information you need, leave messages if you want to advertise. Leave me a message there. We'll get with you. But let's get right into the business at hand because we want to make the time valuable here on the Kim Hammer Show. My in-house guest today is Trent Minner, and in the second half, I got Mary Bentley that's going to be calling in. But in studio for the first part of the Kim Hammer Show is Trent Minner. Trent, thanks for joining me here in studio today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you're running for state representative seat, of which, if you want to go up and check out his website, it's www.trentminner, TRENTMINNER.com, and you should be able to pull it up. I'm looking at it, so if I can get to it, I know you can get to it. But got his website pulled up, and you're running for District
56.
All right, what's that geographical location of 56?
The new district, as it's drawn, District 56, it's all Conway city limits and a little bit unincorporated outside of that, but it doesn't quite get to Valonia or Greenbrier. It's central downtown Conway. It goes east almost out to Valonia, and then it goes north of Beaver Fork Lake,
Okay.
north of town, and a little bit of northwest residential Conway.
All right, you got the bulk of Conway, if not all of Conway, that way. So, so let me ask you: have you always lived in Conway, or did you move in, or what's your history?
Grew up in Conway, and I graduated from Conway Christian. Went to college at John Brown University up in Siloam Springs, and then a few years after I graduated, I went to law school here in Little Rock.
I got a friend. I think he's still up there, at John Brown. Mickey Rapier is on staff up there. He teaches in the music department. I don't know what your degree was in, but
I was in the business college. They didn't let me in their building. I don't think. I
so
don't remember that name.
yeah. So when you go to sing at church, you're making the joyful noise. You're in that choir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you, brother. All right.
Joyful at best.
At best, yeah, from the heart. So you've lived in Conway all of your life, and share any personal information. You got some stuff up on your Facebook, but just to help people get a little connected with you about your family or anything you feel comfortable sharing with the tens of millions of listeners we've got here today.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm running for state representative. A big reason, a big part of that is I'm a big believer that to whom much is given, much is expected. And the way I look at it, I've been given a wonderful family. My parents still live in Conway, and I've got a younger brother, and I've got a beautiful fiance now, and I was given a great community that always supported me, gave me a great place to call home, and I've always, my adult life, I've tried to focus on public service in some avenue or another, and that doesn't have to be government or politics, but that's kind of what it's been for me. I've been lucky enough to work for some of our elected officials and play my own small part in working for conservative government and the ideals and values that I think reflect the ideals and values of the people in District 56.
One of the people you've worked for is a friend of mine that we've run some tough legislation together. Is Robin Lundstrom. What's your connection with Robin? I saw your picture on your Facebook page with Robin. What's your connection?
Yeah, Robin actually kind of gave me, I guess, my best start in being able to work on, for conservative politicians and things like that. I was I guess, a junior in high school, or not, sorry, not high school, college up at John Brown, and she was starting to run for state representative, and she let me work on her campaign. And the thing that I really learned the most from my friendship with Robin and when I worked for her was just how hard she works to be available for her constituents. She would go to the local festival in Siloam Springs and had a booth for people to be available and had binders printed out with all the legislation that had been passed, and they were tabbed. So any people could ask questions. Why did you vote on this or that? And it's just she really set a high standard, I think, in my mind of being available to people, listening to people, even when they're not happy with you.
Yeah, well, she's one of the best, I'll tell you. And she is, this 30 minutes isn't about her, but I'm going to just say she is tenacious. She knows her
Yes.
subject matter. She is convicted,
Hmm.
And when she sets her mind on something, just get ready because she's going to get it.
Oh yeah.
But she's compassionate too.
Right.
She and I ran some bills together. I watched her present in committee on some very hard subject matter bills that she just held her ground. And I think she honestly had the hand of God on her, motivating her along. So Robin Lundstrom is a good one to have at the state capitol as far as I'm concerned. So you got a fiance. That's great.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Y'all are
I
getting married
appreciate
when?
it. December.
December. Okay. All right. Well, you get elected. That'll put you right in the throat of it then because we'll be right in general session in January. So
That's right.
did you, when you proposed to her, did she know that she was potentially going to be getting married to a politician, or did you
Oh
wait till
yes.
afterwards?
No, I proposed in January, so
Okay.
she knew what she was getting into, I guess.
All right. She came on anyway. So
Yes, sir.
so what do you do for a living?
I'm an attorney.
You're an
I
attorney. Okay.
worked as an assistant attorney general for
Okay.
with the attorney general's office up until November or late October of last year. I worked in the consumer protection, public protection department, going after people that scam Arkansans, businesses that take advantage of people. Businesses is kind of a generous term usually in these
Yeah.
situations,
Yeah.
but it was very rewarding. I really enjoyed it. I work for a firm in Conway now, Shane Henry and Associates.
Okay. All right. So how long did you work for the Attorney General's office then?
I started working there in my second year of law school, which was fall 2018.
Okay. All right. Well, consumer protection is a vital component of the Attorney General's office.
It is,
I'm
yeah.
sure you've got some stories about things that you've seen and had to work on, no
Yeah.
doubt.
Any job where I always joked, any job where your only task for the day is to go after the bad guys
Yeah.
from 8 to 5 is that's a pretty good job. That's a pretty good day.
Um, if we can get the telemarketers, that'd be a good thing. But
Right.
I think we're working
Working
on
on
that.
it.
We're working on that. All right, so let's get into some of the meatier thing. As I scroll your page, you got some heavy endorsements here. You got some heavy hitters. Who all stepped out to endorse you so far?
I've received endorsements and support from Senator Tom Cotton, Governor Asa Hutchinson, Attorney General Leslie Rutledge, and Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin.
Okay. Well, that's four aces, as they say. So that's good. Okay. Well, let's talk about what you would do. Well, first of all, what made you decide to get into the political arena? What was your motivation? Why are you subjecting yourself to what you're subjected to when you run for a political office, especially at the level that you're running?
As someone who is growing up in Conway, I feel like I'm a product of the community, and because of that, I know firsthand the challenges that people face, and more than that, these challenges and issues that face our community across the spectrum, they're personal to me, and because they're personal, I want to do what I can, and really just not accept the way things are is just simply good enough, and not to pick on anyone in particular, but I get tired of politicians sometimes always focusing on how great things are and only wanting to talk about that and not acknowledging how much work we still have to do. And that really goes for issues across the gamut.
So, what would be those issues? Because that would be one question I'm asking everybody that comes in, and that is, what are your passions that you would want to pour yourself in if elected when you make it up to the Capitol?
Yeah, so this is broad, but it's based on, Conway was a great place for me to grow up, and I want to do my own small part to make sure that it stays that way in the future. And really, the issues that I think affect that and will affect that in the future are kind of the bread and butter issues: education, healthcare, job creation. I mean, we know, and I'm sure your listeners know, that the government doesn't create jobs, but they can sure limit it if they put their mind to it. So focusing on things like that, I think with education, we need to focus on parents. Parents know what's best for their kid. I think it's best when dollars follow the students. We need flexibility. We need choice. With healthcare, we need common sense Medicaid reforms, things to lower the impact to the state budget, things that allow our economy to grow. Looking at rolling back regulations, whether it's occupational licensing, that's that's a new thing that I'm glad that a lot of people, it's gotten a lot more attention in the last few years. A lot of people don't realize, unless you're impacted by it, just how many things you have to have a license for from the government. And we've got to do what we can to make it easier for people to put food on the table and provide for their families.
So let me ask you something based on your previous experience working for the Attorney General and what you said about businesses, and I'm going to self-interpret part of what you were saying. That is, there are good businesses and then there are bad businesses. Okay, you worked in the area of dealing with the bad businesses.
Yes, sir.
What's your idea as far as the approach? You got to have regulation, otherwise it's a wild, wild west out there. But you don't want to be overregulated because then you stifle the ability for businesses to grow and to thrive, which produce taxes into the local economy and jobs and all that. What's your idea of a balance in between what is proper regulation versus overregulation when it comes to businesses?
Yeah, and really, the Attorney General's office serves an important role there, and is a good example of more effective regulation. The We prosecuted businesses based on the Arkansas Deceptive Trade Practices Act, which is written pretty broadly, and it allows businesses to be prosecuted for false representation. I used to joke, basically, if you were lying, you probably violated it, and I think that avenue actually probably has more impact than just licensure requirements, which are, you know, everybody gets a license, kind of.
Okay. What about on education? Shifting gear on education. You talked about money following the student. So expand out on your thoughts on education. Where do you think we are as a state? Where do you think we need to be heading, and how are we going to get there based on what you think we need to be doing and direction we need to be going?
I think we've got a lot of work to do, and I wouldn't claim to be the expert on it by any means. And that's one reason I think my job, if I was elected, is really to be a good listener. But from what I understand and what I believe, I think we need to introduce choice and parental choice into the mix with education as much as we can. There's a lot of different avenues we can take with that. There's ideas that we can pull from other states, education savings accounts, things like that, that I think can create a marketplace for more innovation in education. And I think that's really one of the best tools we've got in our arsenal to deal with some of the problems that we face. When I worked for Governor Hutchinson, I got to go on a trip to Arizona where they have an education savings account program for targeted towards students with learning disabilities and individualized education plans, things like that. And we got to tour a school specifically for students that had autism, and everything about the way they did school there was different than what you would expect in a typical K through 12 setting. And because they had the policy of education savings accounts, that really that opened up a market where schools like that could exist, and students, regardless of their income level, could afford to go to them. And that's the beautiful thing about conservative policies providing real life solutions to me. I think that's the free market at work, and at work to actually help people, help these kids, and help their families.
Based on what you just said, what would you say are some of the, take Conway. Conway's a pretty diverse area. You've got the Catholic school up there. You've got Conway Christian out there, which is a pretty large school. You got Conway High. New superintendent just came in up there. Jeff Collum is now up there. I think maybe a little bit less than a year. And then you've got the outlying schools. You got the Greenbrier, which I'm familiar with that area because I grew up in Damascus and
Okay,
graduated
yeah.
Southside B branch. And you've really got a good selection of school choice up there in the Faulkner County or Faulkner
For sure.
Conway area. So as far as what do you see as far as what's not going well or could be going better, that what you would want to bring to the table as far as education could help improve it for all schools?
Right. And, we're super lucky in Faulkner County and in Conway specifically to have all those options.
Plus, you got 3 colleges, not to mention that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, it'd be easier to point to this in other parts of the state that aren't as lucky as we are. But I would really say to that, it's not so much about things are bad, where we are and we've got to fix them and get them up to par. It's more about things, future possibilities, the possibilities in education that could be introduced by free market principles that we haven't even thought of, that I haven't even thought of. I think that if we move in that direction, we'll see, I'm a millennial. My generation is big on entrepreneurship, startups, small businesses. We could create a marketplace where an innovative person, that also wants to do some good can go into the education space and create schools that cater to the arts, that cater to science, education, STEM, and also, we've got a lot of work to do in the career and technical education space. College is not for everybody. That's okay. I think we've got to get away from the what I've heard called the bachelor's or bust mentality.
Mhm.
College is a great avenue for a lot of people, but we need to make sure we're doing right by people that it might not be the best avenue for.
Well, and that's what we're trying to do down in Saline County. We've got the new, CTE center down there, which it's in its infancy, and it's kind of developing. Anytime you start something new, you got to kind of get it molded in and everything. But that is one thing that we've done down there that 6 schools contribute to the efforts of students having that opportunity, which I think is a good thing in the workforce development. You mentioned something about that a while ago, and maybe think about we want to create jobs, but at the same time, we're having a hard time getting people just to show up to work or to stay committed to work. I think some of that is, with a around, I don't remember exact number, but, somewhere around a 200,000 population growth in the state of Arkansas, having enough workers for all the jobs that we have, that's part of it. But some of it is also just the work ethics or the lack of work ethics that people in this generation have, just to show up to work. The Any thoughts as far as, because you mentioned Medicaid reform, and that's not to say that anybody that has Medicaid, we're not stereotyping or blanketing here or anything like that, but ideas as far as how to engage workforce that doesn't want to work. Any thoughts on that, or what's your philosophy on that?
Yeah, a couple things on Medicaid, other government programs that we kind of collectively refer to as welfare. I think that introducing work requirements like we've done in Arkansas, we were able to do under the Trump administration, and being able to do things like that for other welfare programs. I think those are a positive thing. I mean, we're talking about work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents. And honestly, when I talk to people across the political spectrum, Democrats, Republicans, what have you, people are usually you know, pretty on board with that. Even when I've talked to Democrats about that, they've often expressed surprise that anyone was actually opposed to requiring work or to seek education for recipients that are able-bodied and didn't have any dependents. And one of the reasons I think we want to encourage work with these programs that we sometimes don't emphasize enough on our side of the aisle is we want people to work because work's good for people. That's we were made to work.
Hmm.
That's part of how God made us. And work, gives dignity, it gives purpose, it'll make you happier and more responsible. And it's not just because we don't, you know, want people quote leeching off the government system. And that's a problem too. We don't want that. But we can also reframe this issue. We want people to thrive. That's what we want. We want the best for people here in our communities. We want their families to flourish. And I think that work is a big part of that. And then, also, I think that we could do a better job communicating all the workforce opportunities and workforce training opportunities that we have here in the state. I mean, there's so much more in the way of scholarships and grants available for people that want to learn how to weld or want to get their licensed to drive a 18-wheeler. There's so much more available than a lot of people realize, and really the most jobs available in Arkansas are in that mid-skill range, that require more than a 6-week course, but less than a 2-year degree. It's in that sweet spot right there. People can get those certifications, they're portable. And I think emphasizing stuff like that is really the pathway for people to move their families a rung or two up the ladder and really kind of help us keep and help us grow healthy communities here in Arkansas.
All right, you're running on the Republican ticket, so it's going to be kind of a no-brainer. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on these issues, but let's get your commitment. Abortion,
Pro-life,
Second Amendment.
pro gun rights.
Okay. Um, Anything else on the platform or anything else on subject matter that you want to make sure, because we're down to about 5 minutes. So let me give you a little bit of open mic time and I'll wrap it up with a few more questions. But anything you just really want to drive home out there that you want people to know?
I feel like we've hit most of it. I paused there when you said Second Amendment because I like to say that our rights don't come from the Second Amendment or the Bill of Rights. Our rights come from God, and they are that's the only way that they're immovable, and they're enumerated in the Bill of Rights. But we have liberties and rights that we believe we have from our Creator and are inherent. I think that's a big part of what makes us conservatives. And I'm sure all your listeners are well aware, but the way of life, as conservatives, we view every individual's has a right to live their lives the way they see fit within the bounds of the law, and that's often under attack today. We've got a more radical left wing element of the Democratic Party that wants to mandate that we all fall in line with every new idea that comes along, and I think pushing back on that and emphasizing who we are as conservatives, people that believe in individual liberty, is an important thing we need to be talking about today.
You mentioned faith a couple times.
Yes, sir.
We haven't talked about, I don't know what church you're a member of. If you're a member of church at all, if you got a personal relationship with Christ, anything you want to say along that line?
Yeah, I was raised in church my whole life, and I know that doesn't. You're a pastor. I know that doesn't make you a Christian any more than being born in a garage makes you a car. But I've got a personal relationship with the Lord, committed Christian, member of a church in Conway, Christ Church Conway. Recently started going in the last few months there, and that's, to me, faith is what motivates me primarily in politics. It's the reason for doing these things, and it informs some of the principles like commitment to pro-life. That, to me, that comes out of every human being made in the image of God and having inherent value regardless of your contributions to society or how vulnerable you are in the case of abortion in this issue. But to me, faith is the why. That's kind of how I think about it a lot of times.
Okay, let me ask you this, because we that are Christians sometimes get accused of inserting our belief systems into the regulations and the making of the law. How do you see the balance, or what do you think is the approach, being a Christian as you have professed, when it comes to your decisions about making the laws and which laws you would be engaged with? About a minute, maybe a minute and a half. Give me an answer as far as your balance of your personal faith belief and establishing laws that are going to govern even those that do not have a personal faith belief. How do you bring those two things together?
Yeah, and it is a balance, and there's certain things, certain rules, I guess, or way I'm going to live my life as a Christian that we don't need. I don't believe the government should be mandating that everyone do that, but there's certain principles that are they they used to call it, and this is the way our founding fathers thought. Certain principles that are part of the natural law and our natural rights and responsibilities and obligations to each other in a civil society, and those apply. It goes very foundational, not to get too in the weeds, but respect for private property, your right to defend yourself, your right to work. Those things, those things, I think, cross denominational and religious lines, and that's where we find a lot of the common ground. I think when we govern in a society that is pluralistic, you don't have to be a Christian to live here, but Christian principles did inform the birth of our nation and most of the governance of this nation in our history. A lot many times we didn't follow them as well as we should have, like we all don't in our personal lives. But that's where a lot of those principles come from.
Okay. All right. I'm out of time. We got to get a break here at the bottom. You're listening to the Kim Hammer Show. First half of the hour has been with Trent Minner, who's running for District what now?
56.
56 up in Faulkner County, primarily Conway. You can go up to his website, thetrentminner.com, and be able to follow along on his website. Trent, thanks for being in studio. We come
Thank you,
back from the
sir.
break. We're going to have Mary Bentley calling in to the Kim Hammer Show. Hang on. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show. On the first half, as you were maybe listening or just tuning in, had Trent Minner, who is running for District 56, newly created position up there in Faulkner County, takes in the majority of Conway. You can go up to his website at trentminner.com if you want to follow along or communicate with him about anything that you have interest in. Joining me here on the second half of the show is a friend of mine, Mary Bentley. And Mary, thank you for calling into the Kim Hammer Show today.
Welcome. Thank you for the invitation, Senator Hammer. I appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. All right. You had a little reconfiguration of your district after we went through redistricting. Tell folks, first of all, what area it is that you cover and what seat number it is for the House of Representatives.
It's district number 54, and it covers majority of the district is in my home county, Perry County. So it covers all of Perry County, which, previously we were divided to 4 House seats. So we're tickled to have it all in one seat. So we have all of Perry County, the northern third of Saline County. So I get connected with you some, section of Faulkner County, Dave Ward South over to Mayflower, and then the eastern section of Yale County that I've covered for the past 8 years. So it's a good section. I'm really excited about it. I'm located in the central part of the district now, so I can get everywhere in the district in about 45 minutes. So for me, that's a huge improvement. So I'm excited about it. I've got some good contacts over here and folks that I know well in Faulkner County and Saline County. So it's a great response out in the district so far, and I'm really excited about it.
Have you got a website, Mary, or where you want people to go look?
I mostly reach out to folks. My Facebook page, Re-elect Representative Mary Bentley, they can find that. And if anybody out there that's a constituent has a concern or question, I'm really free to give my cell phone number. That's 501-889-3556. I just try to be available for my constituents because, as you know, there's lots of things that we can help them with on the state level. So I try to be accessible in that way.
Yeah, that's one thing. Everybody thinks that state representatives, senators, we're all about coming up, making laws and dealing with budget stuff. And that is true. I mean, that is a good share of the responsibility we have. But the reality is sometimes people just need to figure out how to mandate or how to navigate the system and be able to get to the help that they need. Sometimes we can help, sometimes we can't. Really, that's where some of the ideas come as far as the laws that we create or changes, the modifications that we make is based on needs that people have. And so you're right, as far as, a big part of our job is just, trying to help out the constituents. Mary, how long you been in the House of Representatives now? I know we served together when I was down there, but how long you been in?
This is my 7th year, so my 4th term, and I've really enjoyed. It's been very rewarding. As a believer in Christ, I think that it's been I've been able to serve more than I even thought. So, as you said, helping constituents out on an individual basis has been very rewarding. To help them navigate some things when they get bogged down in red tape or whatever at the Capitol. It's been great to help them, make a phone call and help folks out. I think it's been really one of the most rewarding parts of the job.
So when you look back over your 7 years into your 4th term as a representative, talk about some of the cases or some of the legislation that you've worked on or some of the issues that you've worked on that you feel are some of the highlights of your career up to this point.
I think that, as you know, everything that we've done previously up to this point, we're able to use when we went to the legislature. So I was graduated from Harding with a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing and worked at Children's Hospital for well over a decade and then worked at a nursing home. So coming to the Capitol and kind of being an advocate for nurses, I didn't realize, that really wasn't anybody in the legislature that could do it at that point. So that's been a real highlight for me to be able to just trying to get some things we know that you and I both know when we have in rural Arkansas, there's a real gap to care, a real need for more access to health care. So, I guess once you're a nurse, you're always a nurse, and that's been a thing that I really like to work on. So, trying to pass legislation that increases access to care so that folks can see a doctor when they need to. I know you and I have worked together in a number of things, and I really appreciate your help. Because we have to get it done on both ends of the Capitol, right? So you've helped me so much on some things that we passed in the House, and you've carried in the Senate for me to try and get folks that are licensed to be able to take care of patients to be able to do so in Arkansas. So I think we've made some great strides this year. I'm really excited about the things that we were able to get done to help nurse practitioners to be able to practice to the full scope of what they've been trained to do to help our folks get to be seen. And I think during this pandemic, it's been a great thing to be able to work on that as well. So I worked on that, and I look around the state, and I just really want to help Arkansas get healthier and do some positive things. So I've worked on farm to school, because I think, that's a great for our kids to eat healthy healthy food that's locally grown. It's kind of a win-win thing to help farmers in Arkansas and help school children in Arkansas to eat healthy food. So I've worked a lot on farm to school, healthy, active Arkansas schools, just trying to get, as a nurse, I always know that the best thing we could do during this pandemic is to get everybody's immune system built up and to get them healthy. So it's something I've been happy to work on throughout the time that I've been at the legislature.
So what do you think, and I'm asking you something that you and I probably know the answer to, but for the benefit of the listeners, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges as far as getting Arkansas healthier? Because when you look at our numbers, we're not there. We got room to improve. And with your background as far as a nurse and having worked in, the pediatric environment, but also you kind of got both ends of the spectrum covered. You worked at Children's, you worked in the nursing home, it kind of covers the bookends. But, for all the effort that has been put forth, what do you think from your perspective? What do you think are some things that we need to be doing in order to get Arkansas to a healthier state?
Well, I guess one thing is you and I both, I think schools are a good place to start. When I were in public health in the committee and looked at the numbers that we're spending, I think if we could get our schools, and I know our schools are doing so much. My gosh, our teachers, when I go and visit our teachers, I just see the load that they're under. But if we can kind of make it somewhat of a positive and just something that they're focused on a little bit, see what can they do on the school level. And I'm not saying mandate things, but educate children on, how healthy food can help them to have the most quality lifestyle and get the most out of their life, because we know Arkansas has a high rate of diabetes. So when somebody is diabetic, it really cuts down on their lifespan and cuts down on their quality of life. And so what can we do to just educate our students? Our kids are pretty smart. I think if we could make that a priority it doesn't have to be all year, just some part of each year to talk about how can we get healthier and how does it make their quality of life better when they can be healthier. So I think we can help our schools a little bit. I passed a bill last session called Healthy Active Arkansas Schools, and just trying to give schools resources, not trying to mandate anything, but give them some resources through UMS, some different videos and things to help them make it easier for them to do, but make it a priority at our schools. So that's one thing I like to focus on. And another thing that I've worked with is our infant and maternal mortality rate. Unfortunately, Arkansas has one of the highest rates of maternal death when a mother is giving birth and with infants. So that's something we've passed some legislation on to get a committee to review what's happening in Arkansas, what's the data, because we have to get the data to find out what's causing that. So we have worked on that. We've made some great strides. When you and I passed that legislation to allow certified nurse midwives to get out there and have more, make it easier for a lot of women to reach an obstetrician or reach a healthcare worker that can help them during the prenatal care is a huge thing. So I think there are a lot of different things that we can do. It's not going to be one magic wand a way to get one thing done. We have to work on everything together and just encourage, I think, Arkansans to, in every aspect, for us to encourage each other to get exercise, be healthy, and to cut down, anyway, it makes us, gets our immune system stronger so that we can fight even the pandemic and those different things. I think it's really probably more of our eyes than before to see that those folks that were obese were more apt to have comorbidities that make them deadlier when it came to COVID and other things as well. So.
Hey, let me back up a minute, because I was just looking over your website here, and a couple of things I did not realize about you that since we've been working together, it's amazing. Every time you have a conversation with somebody, you might find out something a little bit more. But you are a volunteer firefighter and first responder.
Well, when you're, and I have not as active as I was in the past, but it did help. I was able to, with our local fire department for a long time, we didn't have a volunteer fire department. So when we first started one, I helped to train all the guys, get CPR certified, and help get equipment out there. And at that time, when we first started the fire, that was years back, we didn't even have ambulance service in Perry County. So when we made a call, could be 45 minutes, sometimes even longer, to get an ambulance out there. It's better now. We have ambulance service, so it's not as critical as it was at that point. So, we get lots of awards, Kim, over the years. I think one of the most rewarding awards I got was Volunteer Fireman of the Year, just for getting that oxygen and different things in our community to help our constituents when they're waiting on an ambulance to be able to get there.
Yep.
So,
And I remember that conversation because in working, we had the ambulance association in, and about the reimbursement rates and actually, if I remember right from the conversation in committee, if you didn't have that ambulance service out there, or when that ambulance service was on the verge of going out, the previous one, that would have left that nursing home in your district without any coverage at all, if I remember right.
yes, and we have to have 2 ambulances running for the nursing home to be able to have a full amount of patients, and that was right before the pandemic hit. Didn't even know, that was going on as well. So that's I guess another reason why I find our job so rewarding, Kim, is that we can really do things to help our district where we live and the folks that we love and care about, our neighbors right close by us, to help. So we were able to do that. We were able to help get some reimbursement rates to our ambulance service, and it's up and growing strong right now. So very, very thankful for your help on that as well.
All right, let's talk about just some of the critical talking points that a lot of people that know you probably already know your position on a lot of these things. But we just passed the biggest tax cut history in Arkansas, $500 billion. What's your outlook? What's your attitude? You're elected to come back to the House of Representatives. When it comes to the to the taxes, what's going to be your approach, or what's going to be your position?
Well, definitely not time to stop, Kim. I think we need to keep pushing that as much as we can to cut back on our budget to try and make as streamlined as possible. I really have appreciated how we've done it, in a staged approach, not doing it all at once, but just each year doing more and more to cut back on taxes. Because as well as a nurse, I running my own company. I've been owned and operated Bentley Plastics and Injection Molding Company for the past 20 years. So it's really what got me engaged in politics, is just realizing that we need to have folks at the Capitol that understand what it takes to run a small business. We have to pay so many taxes, and so many things come out of my budget. Sometimes I get done at the end of the year and think all I worked for was to pay my taxes. Especially when you're a small business, you own your own company, then you have to pay the income taxes. So I think we need to continue to work on that, especially right now with this Biden administration and oil going through the roof and our gas prices going through the roof. That's really wiped out disposable income. And without disposable income, that money left over after you pay all your bills, that's a little bit of disposable income. Those are the things that you use to, get a haircut or get your nails done or buy something for a friend at the store. And those are the things that really keep our small businesses going. So we're really, I feel like, under attack with this high gas prices on our small businesses across the state. So we have got to continue to do what we can to help those folks, that own a company. If we can cut down on taxes, to help them to survive and to be able to thrive and provide jobs for our constituents.
Yeah, and that is the down effect when we are giving the volume of tax cuts that we're giving, but under this administration, with the inflation rate, with the everything related to whether it's the supply chain or whatever, the tax cuts that we are giving, unfortunately, are not outpacing what this current administration is doing to our economic system, and that is an unfortunate thing that we as a state have limited control over in our respective positions. But if we can do anything to help relieve the burden, it's better than what this current administration is doing to add to the burden. So at least we're positioned to work on our side.
Yeah, right. Thank God we did what we did, at this point, so we can have a little bit back in the pocket. I can't imagine, being in a spot where we haven't done that. So you're right. There's a limited amount that we can do, but I have really been excited to have all of us really work hard together to cut down on taxes in our state and continue with the regulation as well. I think I finally, it's like when we were talking about visiting with constituents and different things that come up. I had a constituent that moved to Arkansas from out of state, and they were trying to get their license moved to Arkansas. They're a social worker, so they went and passed their license, had their license to be a social worker in another state, and moved to Arkansas, and couldn't get their license moved because of Arkansas had different prerequisites than their state had. So just working with their boards and commissions to help that person get a license. So those are things, that we can continue to work on. think that we're getting somewhere, and I realize we still have lots to do on boards and commissions. I think that's something we need to look at again when we come back in the legislature to make sure that these, if we have someone that has a good standing and a license in another state, I think we've done it for our military, but I think we need to do it across the board to help people to be able to work in Arkansas.
What about the education scene? With you having been down there for 7 years now, what's you're elected to come back. What's your focus on education?
Well, I think that I know you've got a firsthand when somebody living right in your house, you can talk to a teacher firsthand to see what they go through. But I think we all realize that we have room to go on our education system, but I think we've got a legislature that really wants to work at it. So I think we need to spend some more time with our teachers. I feel like too many times we pass legislation from the top down, and all we do is add more regulations and burdens to them and really don't fix anything. I loved what we've done with the RISE program. We did increase our reading, but I think we need to continue to do more. And I think we need to spend some more time and listen to our teachers that have boots on the ground and say, what can we really do to make a difference that's practical? That won't just be another program that looks good, right, but doesn't really accomplish anything in the end. So I want us to spend some more time with a working group to get some teachers helping us to do what can we do more. And I think we've got a new governor coming on board that's really going to be an asset to that, to make sure we continue to do things to improve education in Arkansas. It's really nothing more important to work on than that. I was very disappointed that we weren't able to stop critical race theory in Arkansas. I know that I really encouraged my colleagues that were on the education committee to pass Representative Lowry's bill, but unfortunately we didn't get that done. But I believe it's something our parents need to be assured that they're not having their children indoctrinated at our schools. They need to feel free that they're getting a good education with reading and writing and arithmetic, and not being a forced indoctrination of racism that shouldn't even be considered in our public schools paid for with our tax dollars. Okay.
What about along the lines of I know where you stand, but let me give you a platform to talk about it, the abortion issue.
Well, I'm so thankful for my colleagues that have passed Act 309 that we did, and I'm really hoping we hear some good news this summer from our Supreme Court. So we'll look at that. I think we'll just see what happens in June. Hopefully we'll get that Roe versus Wade overturned, because we have already passed a bill. We passed in 2019 the trigger bill that was able to be the House lead sponsor on to end abortion in Arkansas. If they overturn it, we no longer have abortion here in our state. I just think that people realize now with ultrasounds and so many things, we'll see more and more of our younger generation realizing that's a baby there. And people do get in tough situations, but I think we've got a good support system here to help those women that can't keep their babies, allow them to adopt them, to use our Safe Haven baby box, a number of different things. So I know we have a lot to work on in our state. There's no end, Kim, to the things that we can work on with this foster care, helping our families. But I think we have a great legislature ready to work on those things to make Arkansas better and better each year.
Well, I do think one of the things that came out of the session that we just finished, the fiscal session, which incidentally, in case you didn't know, we finished last Tuesday. I do think one of the positive things that came out was our ability to create some funding for the pregnancy centers that choose to access that money based, once all the guidelines come out on it. I do think that was one of the positive things, because as we move forward, either way, there's going to always be a demand because the pregnancy centers do more than just nurture to women who are in a difficult position to pick or choose an abortion. They do, they do things, parenting, they work with the dads, they work in so many different areas and so many different functions. I know that was controversial. I mean, that's, unless you were sleeping under a rock, it was controversial all the way through the session. But yet at the end of the day, that was one of the positive things that came out of it. And so hopefully moving forward, we'll see that, that'll be put to good use and help those centers that want to tap in on it. Anything else along that line?
I just, I think that we have to, I love the pregnancy risk center in my district. That was probably the one, and I know you being a pastor, this may hit a nerve, but anyway, it's the one group that gets every church in our county together to fund them. When we have their banquet, I see every church in town come together, and I love that. I love that all of our churches are engaged and involved and really sponsoring those groups. So I want that to continue. I don't want things to folks that we just give a little small amount for a one-time fee that they don't need every church to help. We need every church to continue to help and come alongside and be there. And I know that they do a lot of counseling. There's so many things. There's so many mental health issues out there with folks. I think COVID just exacerbated what we have going on with mental health across our state. So those pregnancy resource centers offer counseling to women that have, had an abortion and regret it, and really work with them to work through that and receive God's forgiveness and love and to move forward with their lives. So they do an immense amount of work, and I'm really, really supportive of them and our domestic women's shelters. So many things that our churches really support. I think that sometimes we think that the government's the answer, and it's really not the answer to every problem. Our churches are supposed to be, and folks in our district come along to be the answer to a lot of things. So
Well,
we can't be the end all, but we can sure do what we can and do things in a proper and effective manner.
yeah, and that kind of struck a nerve because reality is, over the years, the church has relinquished its authority and its position to the government in order to do the job that the church ought to be involved in taking care of, in every one of these social areas that we talked about. As a taxpayer who is a Christian, I am glad to know that a portion of our taxpayer dollars are going to go back to help those centers. But that doesn't mean that just because that happens, that is an escape plan for the churches that are supporting those centers. In fact, if anything, I think it's a call to step up and do more. And
Yeah,
so
I agree.
it's not
Yeah,
intended. Yeah,
sure.
you're right. It's not intended to replace anything. But as a Christian taxpayer, knowing that some of my money, until we can get it all cut off, goes to certain places and certain objectives that I don't agree with, I at least want to know that a portion of it is going to go to something that I do support and I do agree, and that avenue has been created. So, all right,
Yeah.
okay,
that.
let's let me ask you about this. I got about 4 minutes left, I think. So let me give you open mic. You're blessed to be reelected. Come back. What are going to be some of your top priorities? Some of the top goals that you plan on working on?
Well, I think we need to continue to work on, like I said, boards and commissions to cut down on regulation for folks to be able to get a job in Arkansas. And really, I've already passed some legislation to make sure we have students the right to know. So what can we do to make sure people are aware of what jobs are available for them, how they can get a job? So those things, I'm going to continue to work on workforce and helping our students. Nothing's more important to me than helping our kids get a good start out here. So continue to work on that. I will continue to work on things with health in our state because, as you said, we're 48th in the nation, so we have a long way to go on that. So we'll continue to work on that. I think we have physicians that are not getting reimbursed near enough. So what can we work on that to make sure that our health care is actually effective? Continue to work on infant and maternal health, on breastfeeding. Those are things another thing we passed in the legislature this last round was some grant funding I worked on for our nursing schools to train more nurses. We've got money for our breast bank through UAMS, so we continue to work on that. So there's a plethora of things I want to work on, Kim, and I think that I've been in there 7 years. I was able to file more legislation and pass more legislation than any member of the House last time, so I'm sure that we'll have another long list to work on. Continuing with levies, there's a whole host of things that we'll continue to work on if I'm blessed to be able to serve the people of District 54.
One of the things you find
And
out is
it's really an honor.
yeah, somewhere along your career, you start off thinking, man, I got a lot of time to work on stuff, and somewhere along the journey, the light bulb comes on, and you realize, you know what, I may not have as much time as I think, and you kind of like hit the afterburner where you kick it up a notch and realize that when you're in the position that we're in to serve the way that we do, that you feel that sense of urgency to get more done while you're in a position to be able to do more.
Exactly right. I have 4 beautiful grandchildren and 2 more on the way, and I'm so excited. And that's what drives me, right? Is to look at our kids and see what can we do on there. I've been able to learn a lot the past 8 years. I want to continue to use that and make our state even better for our grandchildren behind me.
All right. Any other words or anything else you want to share with? Tell us again, what's the district number? The new.
District 54, State Representative Mary Bentley. My cell number is 501-889-3556. You can follow me on Facebook quite easily. Re-elect Representative Mary Bentley. Feel free to ask me any questions you want on there. It's just an honor to serve the Lord in this manner. My faith in God is what keeps me going, asking Him for wisdom each day, because Lord knows we need His help right now to make sure we're making good and wise decisions.
All right, Mary. Thank you for joining me on the Kim Hammer Show. You've been listening to the Kim Hammer Show. That was Mary Bentley, who is serving as the current state rep up for re-election in District 54. You can go up there and check her out on Facebook, communicate with her. She gave you your cell phone number. Pretty bold move. I don't mind giving mine out because you're going to find me anyway, so why not just go ahead and give it. You can communicate to me through the KimHammerShow.com website if you'd like to, or just send an email through the website. We'll be glad to try to get a response to any of your questions. I just want to leave with this thought today. I'd really like for you to encourage or to be mindful of the people in Ukraine and what's going on over in that part of the world. I would encourage you also that you find a means to give some financial support in order to help the people. If you have questions about that, or you want to know a good source that you can know that if you give money, it's going to go to the relief effort. It's not going to be sucked up into some black hole. I've got a couple of outlets of missionaries that we're working with in order to make sure some funding gets to them to help individuals that are refugees coming out of Ukraine. But I would encourage you highly just to remember them in your prayers, give them the support that you can. And if you will, remember this: you never thought it might have happened over there. Don't think it won't happen over here if we don't elect the right people that have the right values and principles to protect our freedom. Never think it won't happen to you, because that's about the time that it will. Hope you have a great Saturday afternoon. Thank you for listening here on the Kim Hammer Show, and we'll look back to have you next Saturday. Thank you.